failure teaches us far more than success ever does. I realized that in business, failure isn't as negatively associated as it is in social media and real life.
The stars never align, especially when you're an entrepreneur and you got multiple fires. There's never a perfect time. But at the end of the day, you realize like, hey, I'll figure it out.
It's a made-up safety net. That we're a forward-moving world. So like the next problem just has to get solved. It's not that there is an issue because a problem arises. That's the very nature of life.
And we are live. Andy, how are you, brother?
I'm excellent. Glad to be back on the podcast, man.
Glad to have you back, man. So when we got connected, I think originally through Mark Bell. He introduced me to you, and we had a podcast, I don't know, like September of last year, I want to say. And in that recording, I'm like, man, this guy's got all kinds of cool things going on. We got to keep in touch and just follow up. And that's exactly what we're doing now. So since then, you've had a patent release. You got a million different projects you're working on. You got a baby on the way. Like, bring me up to speed on what's going on in the life of Andy, man.
Yeah, the last couple of years, I've made the decision to be more involved in the enterprise aspect of fitness. And amidst my journey in pro sports and privatized consulting, there was a lot of like just little IP bits, intellectual property bits that I'd been sitting on along the way, things that I had so many hours on planes, traveling, dreams. I'm kind of like a dreamer in that sense of like things that I would want to do to help people. And as they accumulated, and as my wife and I spoke about wanting to have a family and the lifestyle that we wanted to live long term, I didn't see like the massive excess of travel that I had been accustomed to the last, 3 to 5 years prior to the 2 years I just referenced, being a viable option long term. So these last 2 years since then, I've really worked on creating projects, and they're all geared towards helping people. There's 6 of them. They're all getting into a really, really fun and exciting phase in that they're out of the origination stage of like just getting things on the ground. And now they're all beginning their pre-exposure phase. It's a project as a whole, you know, passion projects can't be rushed, in my opinion. You only get your chance to be out on the stage and introduced to everybody once. And I think there's a strong moral, ethical backbone in doing things as correctly as I can within reason. So I've been really strategic in how I've spent my time in the last 2 or 3 years. And that's kind of why I've been, not really on social media a bunch. I didn't see that being a part of my long-term family plan either.
Gotcha. So you've got basically 6 different legs of the business that are all coming to fruition at the same time.
Yeah, pretty much. So I have my patent is in algorithmic amino acid optimization of a laboratory sample. So that's an algorithmic process that takes the amino acid composition of something that contains a gram of protein or multiple amino acids that you can test in a lab, and it reorganizes them based on my algorithmic, portion I created that allows it to have a greater time spent in muscle protein synthesis for the user or the end product. So I'm actually mainly looking at single sourced like feeding animals, whether some of them being ruminant, some of them being like dogs. Sure, you might give your dog some scraps or treats here or there, but really mostly what they eat is one source of nutrition for the vast majority of dogs and domesticated animals out there. So that is my initial application there. But essentially for the enterprise, it makes it really cheap to offer an optimum nitrogen outcome with the protein that they're providing, whether it be like, protein blocks or whether it be dunk treats. And for the consumer, they don't have to pay a premium because, as you know, in the keto world, like protein and fats are kind of at a premium price wise when compared to carbohydrates, especially when compared to like fiber and some other things out there. So
Mm-hmm.
they don't have to pay a massive upscaled price to get the highest quality protein outcomes for their dogs, animals, or maybe one day we'll move to human stuff. But that's where that patent project is currently at.
Gotcha. So basically, you've created an amino acid that takes longer to absorb and assimilate, so it fuels the body, the cells, more efficiently over a longer period of time, so you're getting greater nitrogen output from fewer inputs, basically.
Yeah, it's not an amino acid, it's just an equation, essentially.
Okay.
It's like an algorithmic equation process that takes the lab sample and improves it.
Gotcha, gotcha. And your, um, time to market on this, like, when would this actually be hitting the streets, so to speak, from a
This is my
animal
slowest
standpoint?
market, because I'm not sure honestly what exactly I wanna do with it. I see realistically here, I think, like, world and national health is the best market for it. Like, for example, like Doritos. The 4 grams of negligible protein in Doritos, even though so many people consume them, doesn't have to be completely useless. Same as, like, the 7 grams of protein in peanut butter. Doesn't have to be completely useless protein. Like, the backbones are there, kinda like rice and beans. Like, you can survive off the protein you get from rice and beans alone. It's not optimal, but you can survive. And there's a lot of foods that are produced out there in a manufacturing plant that can benefit from this tremendously. So I'm just being coordinated with how I want to approach the patent working, if you will. I think the things that you're most likely to see soon are I have a tech company that I started with 2 friends, and we have a really great research team behind us. We created a KPI network, essentially, and a platform for the fitness business owner to scale and profit better. It's essentially like a technological consultant for the business in your pocket. It's completely automated, and it's a really fantastic product that we've been working on for a while. So that's most likely to hit the streets, if you will, first. I have a CPG cracker product, consumer packaged goods, that I'm doing with a couple of friends that is going to start short or I should say small scale rather than short scale, small scale production soon. And I have a couple other cool projects as well that are on the medium time frame.
You were emailing me a while back about, food production and manufacture, so I'm assuming that was in relation to the cracker product.
Yeah, the cracker and the patent too, as in the sense of like, how can I like? Because it would be cool to make any like nutraceutical product better in terms of protein with this patent. That's exactly what it does. So I just wanted to get some questions in the world of like, what is it like to be a CPG owner, and like, what kind of way can I serve you with the patent long term? And I've still been kicking the one around, but the cracker is a cool product that I'll be releasing relatively soon.
Does the cracker have the protein amino acid thing in there, or is that
No, they're
not
totally
yet
separate.
joined? Totally separate?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, the cracker, as any CPG product, is basically just like, a way to generate revenue potentially, right? The CP
What's unique about the cracker?
it's we're calling it the world's healthiest cracker in that not only is it completely allergen free for like all 7 major allergens, it's white rice flour derived, and it has really cool like Mediterranean inspired flavoring. Has a little bit of a funny story behind it with how we got to certain aspects of it. And it also has myrrh, frankincense, and clove extract in the formula to as in, CPG products are nutraceuticals. Supplements are not food products, but with the intent of people eat crackers quite often, it's a pretty common food household item. Eating this like long term over time will produce some cool antioxidant benefits related to quality of life. And we thought it was fitting. It's like an old world flavor and feel and style constructed cracker. And, myrrh, frankincense, and clove are like some of the oldest, you know, beneficial herbs and plant remedies out there.
Mhm. Very cool, man. And y'all are doing that in-house, or how's that production looking?
We're looking in Orlando, Florida, small scale production to begin, and it's something that we're really close on. The last thing we have to handle is like some little things related to packaging, and assembling it and getting the whole system going. And we're also in the process of consulting with some chefs on like just little details related to running the business properly for trade knowledge we don't have. So we're in like that penultimate stage before we start pumping this thing.
Gotcha, gotcha. Alright, so what are the 6 listed off, I guess, in order the time they would be to market? So you've got, you just rattled off several of them there, but, like, what are the 6 in order of time to market, roughly?
So in January, the BioLearners Institute is an online exercise physiology focused platform that I'm creating for students to come and learn about the trade of exercise physiology as well as the scholastic effect. Because I think there's not only a big difference there, but I do feel like both are really, really important. So that's going to be available for students as soon as this January. Shortly after that will be the tech company, but that's completely business to business. There's no consumer in terms of consumerism there. And that will be the second one that will be ready in the first third of 2026.
And that's
Um,
for the trainers and the coaches and things of that nature?
Yep, exactly. That's the KPI platform. I have a cool golf insole product based on ground reaction forces that will be competitive in terms of timing for release with a tech company, but that will be in the first third. We're going to be doing our in-house research testing for it actually shortly. We just finished creating like the exact product on a 3D printer with the exact material on the insole itself. Like we were really picky in terms of friction creation and what exact materials are being used. So that's a really, really cool one as well. So that's what the third, I think the fourth, the cracker. Then we have my nonprofit, which is already out. We are slightly taking a right-handed turn and focusing on physical fitness for the family and focusing on continuing education for the faculty member. So that one's already started. I didn't even kind of really mention that one. And then lastly, we have the patent, which is the slowest one.
Man, how do you keep track of all this stuff in your mind? Plus, you got a kiddo coming in February, you said, right?
Correct. I'm honestly really good at it. I'm not gonna lie in terms of organizing my time. I'm very rigid in spending a certain amount of time on something, making sure absolutely that the task is completed. I'm very good at admitting failure and asking for help and knowing my weaknesses and then surrounding myself with partners and associates who fill those gaps. And then I think also one aspect that I foundationally layer in each of these businesses with the partners and equity I have is that clear and concise communication, and not in just terms of like talking nicely to each other. Like if I say X, does X mean the same thing to you that it means to me? And I think
Mhm.
establishing that early on allows me to trust my associates, partners, and employees, as well as be able to have my mind clear on the task in front of me because of that trust and communication I've established. So I think I do a good job of not worrying about what my colleagues should be doing when they should be doing it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, man. How do you, I know we talked about like structured of daily routines in the last time we talked, but you didn't have 6 businesses the last time we talked. So what does that look like for you now? Like from the moment you wake up to the moment you lay your head on the pillow, like how do you have like a dedicated time block to focus and fight fires for each of these different ventures throughout the day, or how does that constructed?
Funny, I think that's why this podcast is kind of like a perfect follow-up because my life is just so different now. Of course, my daily routines are different and how I organize things are different. So I think for everybody, like switching gears is difficult. So I overarchingly have my days segmented into the type of tasks and fires, if you will, I'll be putting out. If they're more philosophical, emotional, or social in nature, I don't let that fall on a day I'm doing numbers. They just collide too hard, and they're what makes you successful in one venture there does not necessarily make you successful in that subsequent venture. So organizing it in terms of almost behavioral traits, if you will, I've found to be really successful in terms of transitioning task to task and in terms of ameliorating how much I feel like it takes out of me. Like when I have to go from very, very numbers and like small based, if you will, to very, very widescreen, like thinking of big picture stuff. I think myself, a lot of other, executives, colleagues, corporate, professionals that I've spoken to feel the same. So that's like that first layer of organization I have. I only put out certain fires on certain days, within reason. Sometimes things come up, but that's the greater organization. Then within that, I've become very comfortable with recognizing that there's no such thing as 100% every day. There just isn't, right? Like you might be giving everything you have to give, but that doesn't mean you have your 100% to give. Like volition is very different than what you can actually spend, if you will. So I've become really good at prioritizing. Even if I only got 60 minutes of 100% of my energy in me today, what's going to get that time? And I've become
Mhm.
comfortable, one, not feeling my best and still getting work done, which I think is important, and just picking and choosing what work can be done when I don't feel my best. And then, like I said, like admitting mistakes and asking for help. I think a lot of people ruminate on things that they shouldn't day to day because they either don't trust their colleagues or because they're not at peace with the choices they've made. I might have to microdose my exercise now and have to like kind of jump around. But with the current lifestyle I have, I'm not training for progress, frankly, like I have in the past, with like dedicated days for dedicated goals. My goal is to make progress in the gym that allows me to better handle my life. And my goal is to have an excess of proper nutritional and exercise based fitness that I can get back to very shortly, hopefully, in life, doing more resistance training that I love. I gotta say it's been a fun change of pace. I have a lot smaller meals, which is easier to get in just general life. You know what I mean? Like not having to push, the upwards of 3,700 to 4,500 calories in, to get all the work you need to do done in the resistance training world. So I've just been open to accepting that and recognizing that my days look different, and planning for it. So for example, on things that are quite philosophical, I love reading. Like whether it be the Bible or a book or an article that requires me to use my frontal cortex truly. The reason I like those more difficult reading tasks for difficult philosophical work is because not only does it correlate with the proper cortical regions of the brain for being philosophical and making big choices, but it's an easier jump. Whereas, again, maybe it's a day where I'm dealing with numbers or maybe there's like employment repercussions going on. I love exercising in a more explosive manner or maybe doing something that involves that part of my brain. So I think as an adult, if you will, I've become good at like synergizing tasks. Like what matches with what? Okay, these can all go together on the same day.
I like that a lot, man. I feel like, and this is all very fascinating to me because I feel like I'm spread super thin right now. I'm excited about it all, but I've also got multiple legs of the business. So what you're saying just really is hitting home for me. So we're going to dive deep into it. But having the philosophical days aligned with the other activities and habits throughout that day makes total sense. Like you wouldn't want to reconcile your QuickBooks accounts on the same day that you're figuring out strategy plans or having employee evaluations from a, you know, habitual emotional standpoint, probably. Like you're wanting to keep those pretty well segmented. And I feel like if you can do tasks on the front and back end of those to bookend the day, it's not going to be near the leap that it would be otherwise. And you're just way more effective.
Yeah, and, like, that lag time and that mental energy drainage seem to be much less, and, like, I've enjoyed doing, like, I think everyone just inherently falls in love with the gym at first because of the progress notion. I've been doing a lot more, like, cardiovascular and, like, liver, quote, unquote, "focused workouts," if you will, like, much less muscle contraction focused. Like, for example, today, I did, like, 10 sets of 15 seconds on, 15 seconds off on the ski erg. I did a thruster reciprocal reverse lunge combination and some stuff like that for my cardiovascular days. And they've honestly been fun and feel like they kind of match up a little better mentally with that, like I said, philosophical strategy or just big picture day. Whereas the nitty gritty of resistance training feels like it matches up so well with, like you said, whether it be employee management or numbers or QuickBooks reconciliation, like you mentioned, or anything like that.
Totally. Are you training at a set time each day or is that just going to totally be dictated by the day?
I think that's something you kinda have to let go to a degree as a business owner unless you have really, really great gym access. Like, I just go to a random powerhouse in Stewart near me. So what I do is I have pockets that I look at ahead of time in the day where I can fit in what. And kinda like when you let your dog out to the bathroom, like, anywhere within the fence, you can pee and poop wherever you want, buddy, but you're not
Mhm.
allowed to go anywhere outside that fence. I try to create like a more rigid fence for myself. Like no matter what, I'm going to complete like 120 minutes of cardiovascular focused resistance training effort this week. right? Like, however that is, whether it be like that skier type stuff I talked about, or maybe just like really high rep supersets and like keep my heart rate in a certain range. I'm going to do that for at least 2 hours this week. Once I get that done and lock that down, then I can have some fun time to lift maybe the way I might want to lift at the moment, you know?
Totally. How do you go about eliminating distractions? Because when you have a full plate like you do, like what you say no to is equally, if not more so important than what you say yes to. So how do you go about that? I feel like a lot of people have troubles with that. I've had troubles with that.
Totally. Uh, Planning in a very specific manner, I've found has helped. To be honest, I'm not an easy person to distract necessarily. So there is like some proclivity involved on my end that may make this seem rudimentary. But what I've found personally is when I go through my planner and write it myself, I feel much more I I don't know if it's cognitive or emotional, but I feel much more aware and involved of what's going on. So I'll spend 5 minutes to start every workday where I look over my schedule and what's actually going on, and I just quickly write it down. I have a notebook and a Remarkable. They're both fantastic choices. But I don't know if it's that you're thinking about it more involved and activating, of course, certain aspects of your brain when you're rewriting it, but something about the 5 to 10 minutes I take to rewrite it and, like, go through what I'm trying to do for the day has been a drastic improvement for me in terms of, like, being focused because I spend less time I think a lot of times productivity issues start with improper questions. You know, like, when I talk to athletes specifically, I tell them to ask how questions, not what questions. Like, you know, not like, oh, what if this happens? It's like, how am I going to solve this problem when it does occur? So, what I found really messed up my productivity and led me to this answer was, like I said, asking questions like, oh, what about this? Oh, I forgot about this earlier. Or it's like, well, what if we did this instead? And that 5 minutes of writing down my plans, even if it's complete and exact rewrite, going through it, I've found allows me to be more in tune with it when I start. So, like, let's say you have an 11 o'clock meeting, but 7 a.m. now. When I write that down in the morning, I don't feel like blank when I get to that 11 a.m. meeting. I'm like, oh yeah, like something about writing it down. I do remember that. And like, this is going to be how this goes down. You know, I think transitioning and productivity are two difficult things. And I feel like also the way I organize it, like I said, have a general theme for the day, like try not to mix and match two non synergistic tasks also keeps me on hand.
Totally. What calendar software do you use?
I use
Did you
Outlook. I honestly don't love it. Maybe like I have an overly, like, ambitious expectation of what my calendar should be. Outlook is alright. It's not fantastic, but I've been using it forever, and I'm accustomed to it, so I just stick with it. But, I use Microsoft Outlook, and I also have, like, a personal planner that, like, is, almost like a master ledger, if you will, of, like, all of my stuff. Outlook just involves things that get booked for me, as well as, like, things that just happen to pop up on my Outlook.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I use a Google Calendar, and if it doesn't exist in there, it just does not exist in my brain. And I'll look at that before I go to bed at night and first thing upon waking to kind of set the not the first thing upon waking, but when I start actually sitting at the computer and working, what my tone for the day is kind of like similar to your writing, but I like the idea of actually writing it before the workday commences. What do you use for your overall like personal plan? Is like an app or something for that?
No, I just freehand it. Like,
Just freaking it?
funny, like, I don't even save that handwritten thing. It's just that aspect of doing it. Because I did the same thing for a while. I remember speaking about it to some friends. Like, I didn't have the planner at all. Like, I was just going off the Outlook, and I just, like, couldn't tell why, and I was struggling with it. Like, I just felt, like, residually anxious for no reason and, like, felt unsure and, like I mentioned earlier, like, untrusting of Outlook for whatever reason. Like, oh, I just, like, didn't feel intimately connected with it. And handwriting it in the morning just really was like, I guess the point of hacks is, like, you get way more out of it than what you put into it, and it felt like, at least for me, I don't know if it'll work for anybody else, but, like, for me, it felt like a really big personal hack, like, it just felt like it was better ingrained in my memory and better ingrained in my active working thought process.
Totally, totally. What do you use? We're totally going down the tangent rabbit hole of softwares and stuff like that, but I like this. What do you use when you're just going throughout the day, driving or whatever, and then like an idea comes to your head is something that you want to dive deeper into later? Like, do you have like a voice memo software or like a note taking app of some sort where you can kind of pin that for later?
I reference it back to my notebook. Like I just like write it down on somewhere in a handwritten note. And that's really it. I do tend to feel like I do a pretty good job of like remembering random ideas. And I think good communication and putting it down on paper like helps me remember it better. But I don't have anything cool there, unfortunately.
Honestly, man, just writing it down, like the physical act of writing is coming back around, man. Like people recognize the benefit to physically writing it. Like there's some connection between the hand and the brain where it makes it more tangible for people. So I think physically writing is the way to go, probably.
So I it's funny, I'm aware of the science behind especially cursive and what it does for the brain via the arcuate fasciculus and stuff, but I just see it as a whole different value now. Because something that I forget I wrote it down in a sense, right? But there's a physiological response to it that's valuable, you know? So that's what I've kind of just been leaning on, and I've been handling it pretty well up until this point. Like there will be a time where things have to change, and I think especially as an adult, mental flexibility is just the most valuable thing you could possibly have. I think a lot of people take business personally. And I think a lot of people take the success of their business personally. And I think both of those things are poison.
Yeah, agree. What I know you sent like an email autoresponder a while back that you're cutting back on your consultation calls and workload in that regard to focus on everything else. What is demanding the majority of your time currently?
The tech company, without a doubt. We are so close to being done. B2B business is a little bit more difficult. We ran a seed round. We're doing really well on the seed fundraising round. And it's just the most exciting and the most prevalent with the shortest time frame, right? Like this is a market that is hot right now, gym management software. Whereas like the patent, the algorithmic optimization of like food for, potentially like people in other countries that are impoverished is like a very, very long-term thing, and that'll always be around. So I've
And this is the KPI software?
yeah, that's what I meant by the gym management software. I meant the patent for helping people eat is like the long-term thing. So I've like kind of mapped out how and what businesses are coming to market based on the markets themselves as well.
Gotcha. So who would be the ideal use case? You said it's business to business, but like what are they looking to achieve in using this software and what problem is it solving?
Yeah, the scaling corporate fitness related business, mainly one that involves skeletal muscle contractions. So not just your classical regular gym, but that also includes personal training studios, CrossFit, that involves F45, Orange Theory, and all these types of companies that are scaling their locations based on resistance training, essentially. So we have a hardware pulse oximetry model, and we also have a really, really fantastic software as a service product. And these come together to quantify how a scaling business can improve and grow like better than ever. We have three major buckets for marketing enhancement. We have our second bucket is equipment valuation, and our third bucket is how to manage the actual employees for optimum development of the employee as well as optimum development of the client. And it's cool because the consumer never has to see it. You could show up as a personal training client or to a CrossFit class as a person just going to class, and they can have all this integrated and you would never know and gain all the benefits.
Nice. That's exciting. How long have you been working on this?
This is a solid 2.5 years. Just it takes a long time to create, equations, cascades, and networks. We have 34 values on our industry first KPI network. It's really, really cool in that like all 34 of these values have never been used in the gym setting before. And really no setting. It's a trade knowledge focused. Like me and my two co-founders are very, very well versed in the gym and fitness world. And we created numbers just like your GNC or Nordstrom might use when you go to the mall for Christmas and stuff. We created specific KPIs and metrics for the scaling gym.
Nice, nice. And this is gonna go live. next month, right before you have a baby.
Pretty much. The BioLearners Institute will go live first. The KPI platform and software as a service product will be ready most likely, but we're gonna make sure we're ready to launch when we're ready to launch. So there's no rush on that one. But the BioLearners Institute early January for absolutely certain. That one's already locked in.
Nice. What was the, I'm curious, man, like, when you had all this stuff in the pipeline, you knew it was all coming, were you and your wife like, "Okay, when should we get pregnant, ideally, with all these launches," or was that totally not even in the thought process?
Oh, it's funny. I told my friends I wasn't ready at all in the sense that like everyone when they talk about getting pregnant, they're, "Oh, it takes a while, whatever." And I was like, "All right, cool, we got time." My wife and I got pregnant like a month into trying. And I was
Yeah.
at first I was like, "Damn it, like I have more time." But it's the way God wanted it, I guess. So we're riding it out.
Nah, it's gonna be good, man. Like, this is your first one, right?
Yep, it is, and we're excited. We're past the, like, nervous phase, of course, and we're as excited and prepared as we can be as new parents, you know?
Yeah, no, it's cool, man. I mean, like, I'm a new parent as well. I've got 2, but I'm learning every single day, and, like, when we had our first, we planned everything. Like, I knew, like, I'm looking at when my next competition prep season is gonna be. Like, I'm trying to figure all that out as to when we conceive, and it's like, we got pregnant pretty much instantly upon trying for the first one. The second one took, like, a month or so, but, like, yeah, you're never ready per se. The stars never align, especially when you're an entrepreneur and you got multiple fires you're fighting at all times. Like, there's never a perfect time. But at the end of the day, you realize, like, hey, I'll figure it out. Like, I'm really good at figuring things out. I can think on my feet. I have common sense. I've got critical thinking abilities, and I'm a problem solver. And when you're a business owner, you're a really freaking good problem solver, hopefully. So you're able to just adapt, and that's what it's all about, man.
Hello, y'all. Robert Sikes, the founder of the Savage Perspective Podcast, the host of the Savage Perspective Podcast. As y'all know, we do not roll ads throughout the podcast. This is not an ad technically, but I'm going to throw it in there just in case. The reason I don't put ads in here is because I don't want y'all to be distracted with minutes and minutes of just irrelevant content for me to make a buck. That's not good for y'all. I don't want to be inauthentic like that. However, I would be remiss if I didn't point y'all towards a great resource. So all of the guests that I bring onto the show are designed to give y'all insight, give you information, give you value that allows you to optimize your health from a ketogenic standpoint. I've built out a resource that takes everything I've learned over the years as a podcast host, as a professional natural bodybuilder, as a coach in the space, and I've compiled all that into a very, very comprehensive system, which also includes a community, a membership community from an accountability standpoint. It's got a ton of resources like a free workout app. It's got a AI that's built out based off of all of my content, so it's not giving you conflicting information. And the program has over 150 videos that breaks down all the details as to how to manipulate your macros, optimize your metabolism, build muscle, lose fat, all the good stuff that y'all are striving to do. And also, since I don't do ads on the podcast, all of the affiliate discount links that I have for various different brands live in this program as well. That literally pays for the cost in and of itself. So if you're interested in doing a deeper dive, actually using these tools and reaching your highest self, check out ketobodybuilding.com.
Yeah, I love working with college athletes. It's honestly probably one of my favorite demographics to work with, just because they're so pure in the sense they want it so bad, right? Everyone in college wants it so bad. And you're talking to them an influential part of their life where it's also atypical and like the jump from college to pro sports is not, of course it's huge in talent and skill, but it's even bigger in lifestyle. Like you're going from a random college kid that's just a glorified high school kid into like a full-on adult who's actually probably making more money than you really should. Like you're not prepared to handle that at first. And not that you don't deserve it, but you're not ready for what all that brings and the people that'll bring into your life as well. So I love working with college kids, and I always tell them that commitment comes before clarity. You don't just get to know the answers and put nothing into it.
Mhm.
I tell them the same thing with genetics. A lot of times you don't know if you're genetically gifted for something or not until it's too late. Not everyone's the 8 or 12-year-old who's a superhero. Some people are freaks later in life. And some people find out they're freaks after 10 years of grinding away at it. You know what I mean? And I think that's why I find that statement to be so enlightening, because everyone wants an answer these days. If I take this peptide or this pill, or if I go keto, Robert, how quickly till I have a six pack? It's like, dude, it's not a question you can even answer, nor is it a question you should even be asking, right? But that is where a lot of culture is moving towards. And that's, what drove me to enterprise. I think I'm much more well suited, and I think I can actually make more of a difference in the enterprise world and corporate world rather than I can in the social media world.
Yeah, I agree with you. I get frustrated when I look at the quick fix, short-sighted mentality that I see, and a lot of social media is prevalent with that, obviously. I mean, the viral content, I mean, people in one sense, it's cool to be able to see what people's attention is on and have a really clear pulse on that. But then it's kind of disheartening because you see what people's attention is on. It's like, where is the long game approach mentality that we all should benefit from and would benefit from? And it seems to be missing in a lot of areas, especially within food, nutrition, exercise, and training. So I feel like tackling it from a corporate level makes a meaningful difference over a longer period of time for sure. I don't know a solution to not get jaded by just humanity in general. Like I try to not be cynical in nature, but man, it is very frustrating to see people not want to play the long, healthy game with anything really.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you just gotta go with what you're better at. Like, I'm suited for strategy, and that's how I think, and feel better. Like, I've even felt more accepting of other people doing something that I feel like I really wanna do. You know what I mean? And I think we all lose that patience, love, and tolerance for people when we feel like we're not fitting into the little position we're supposed to fit ourselves into. And I think that comes with that mental flexibility. Like, I did go through a little bit of like an ego death where it's like, man, am I really going to potentially leave pro sports? And like, we all put ourselves into these holes, but we don't get that clarity until after that we've committed that, like, wow, that was the right move for me, you know? And I realized that in business, like, failure isn't as negatively associated as it is in social media and real life, if you will. Like, I think a fear of failure is like a completely, to be frank, like ignorant concept. You know, Y- Failure teaches us far more than success ever does. In fact, there's that Japanese um, school of thought. I think it's called I'm totally gonna butcher this. I think it's like Kintsugi or something like that. I forget about it, but it's about the seeing the flaws and mistakes. And essentially, like if a bowl breaks, they use gold, silver, platinum,
Hmm.
laminated like stuff to put it back together, and that you represent and are proud of your shortcomings and that you've gotten over them in a lot of senses. And I think that's a really, really healthy thought process, and I've found it's rewarding in businesses, in consumer customer service, for example, right? If a customer is not happy, there's a reason that you're typically told to just make them happy somehow. There's obviously multiple avenues to traverse there, but I've found that embracing failure and me feeling naturally comfortable with embracing it was also better suited corporate world. Whereas like you have to really help people out to understand these things in consumerism and social media and general conjecture. And that just wasn't where I felt most useful.
Yeah. And I feel like if people are quote unquote failing with anything that they are doing with integrity for the right reasons and positive intentions, then it doesn't even really come across as a failure if it's happening counter to what they had hoped for. Like it's much easier to embrace a learning experience for what it is and rise above it if you have purity of intentions and you never sacrificed your integrity in getting there. I think a lot of people find themselves depressed, disheartened, frustrated, and pissed off at the world when they know they're doing something that's totally out of alignment with what their character traits are calling for and what they're truly passionate in.
Yeah, picking up the $10 bill over the $100 bill is usually the bad choice.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Well, I'm excited for you, man. I'm excited on all fronts. What other total this is just a catch up call because I find you as a very fascinating person. I'm just excited about what all you're doing. But what other random things have you done since we've spoken last that have kind of led to this enlightening aha awakening moment in your own mind?
Um, I would say I've had a big eye-opening experience in terms of nutrition. I felt that like there was always a reason, of course, behind everything I was eating. And like it's like how many carbs or fats should I have at this meal? And like, oh, did I exercise enough to eat this today? And I recognized that that was no longer a framework of thought that was serving me right now. And I was actually struggling more with body composition, proper eating, and and training when I was forcing myself in that framework to be hyper rigid, worried about the exact macros. And that's just not where I'm at in life right now. And funny enough, I find myself naturally eating healthier, wanting to eat healthier, making better decisions in a much more easy frame of mind when I separated that rigid framework and allowed myself to realize, like, hey, the difference between 60 and 70 carbs doesn't matter right now. As long as I'm somewhat in the ballpark and not doing something, impulsive with food, I'm actually healthier than I am maybe following or attempting and failing to follow a rigid macro based diet and then having like a one cheat meal every now and then. So it's funny, I find myself being more liberal in how and what I eat, but my relationship and responsibility with it is the best it's ever been. And that there's never scenarios where I'm dissatisfied with what I'm eating or bored, but I'm also not making like crazy, stupid decisions. And I'm just in general, like with the weight of everything else in life, you have to learn to let some things go in a good way, just to balance out the scales. And I'm very happy with that balance I've attained with food, exercise, training, and my perception of it. Because I'm also happy with what I did in the strongman world and my progress early in life as a young adult. And I'm happy knowing that it might take another 10 years of like life development before I do something like that again. But that's when it'll serve me best anyway.
So basically, your training and nutrition need to be pretty well cohesive with your goals in your life and every component. So, like when you were doing the strongman, the powerlifting, and more, metric oriented training modalities, having the really structured, rigid guide to your food plan, macros, like that worked well because it was cohesive. Whereas now the focus being more so on the different business ventures, having a baby on the way, like you got to be more flexible, and being more flexible with everything else is more cohesive.
Yeah, I think the worst thing we can do is choke things to death. There's a saying in Spanish my mom would always tell me that if all the doors are closed, it's for a reason, is what it directly translates to, essentially. And I saw that many times in my life where I was trying to choke something to death and there was no milk to be squeezed out of it. And I was just still choking it to death effort wise. And when I realized that the energy that we have for our business, friends, family, and loved ones is a lot more precious, and I said no more, and I was more focused on the end outcome for each individual task. It just kind of almost ended up making sense training and nutrition wise because I was trying to fit like a circle peg into a square hole, if you will, for a while. Like I was just like grinding it out and not making it work. And I was wondering why, like, why am I like craving cheat meals so much more? Why am I struggling with something I never used to struggle? And it was because I didn't have the bandwidth to realistically handle that and recognize that it wasn't matching up with my goals. So I didn't see the value. It was never a burden to be on a meal plan when I was in like chronic athlete mode. But recognizing and being flexible enough to shift has actually made me healthier. Like my blood work's really great right now, and I'm happy with that. I might not be the most jacked or the strongest I've ever been, but I'm the, kind of like Mark says, like I'm the best me that has ever been right now. And I'm really satisfied with that.
How do you differentiate between knowing where that line is when you're in the middle of it? Like it's easier to look back after it's all said and done, but okay, yeah, I was choking something to death then. There was nothing else to squeeze. But when you're in it, like what are your KPI metrics, so to speak, to know, okay, this is me needing to push a little bit harder. I'm almost to the cusp of it. Let me just grind it out to the finish line. Or, man, this is not the best plan of action or use of my resources right now. Like, how do you differentiate between two?
Necessity and return on investment. So if it's something that's an absolute necessity, versus not, I think that as a business owner should make a big difference in how you handle something. You only need to handle what's an absolute priority first. Everything else is a variable. So I think a lot of times we let our emotional connotation to something, or maybe like a psychosocial aspect of something, think that something's a necessity when it's actually not. The line between necessity and conditional is quite large. It's not like the, blurring between like, right or wrong, friend or best friend. Those are gray area, right? If something's a necessity, it's obvious. Secondly, is return on investment. If you're not getting sufficient juice for your squeeze, you have to really question why you're doing something. So with the food thing, for example, I was like, I'm worried about hitting my macros and being on the meal plan I want to be on right now. And I was like, well, am I making weight for something? Where's the necessity here? Well, my necessity is survival. It's like, okay, so it's pretty low on the necessity list for food. So then it becomes return on investment. I felt my return on my investment food wise was low. So I asked myself, how can I get more out of less? And I think this two-step process is a wonderful buffer that I apply to everything. So I was like, all right, like obviously some other goals include longevity, your waistline, feeling good, being happy with like your body and your fitness, like that weird guy thing. Like if someone broke into my house right now, you think I could mess them up? You know what I mean? Like every guy thinks about that, right? You know, hitting those check boxes doesn't require like my best go super brain plan, right? In fact, I would love to get a return on my investment, if you will. That's like tenfold theoretically, right? I barely have to think about my nutrition now, and I'm good, and I'm not fat, and I'm like active, and I feel good, and it feels like it costs me nothing. Right.
Yeah.
So I think about it in terms of marketing, right? The best marketing scheme is the one that provides actual clients to you. And this still has not changed to this day. It's word of mouth and networking relationships. There's no more powerful marketing tool. Mark Zuckerberg would love for us to believe otherwise. There's no more powerful marketing tool than how people remember you and the service you provided them. That's the entirety of how I've literally made my career up until this point. You know me, I've never been like a rah-rah. In fact, I don't even post about the athletes I've worked with ever. I've never made one social media post about a corporate executive, a corporate team, or a professional athlete that I've worked with. And it's on purpose because that speaks volumes to them in terms of my relationship with them, how I view them, how they view me, and the service I provide. So, what's a stronger marketing tool? Someone telling you, hey, man, this guy did X, Y, and Z for me, or a social media ad. Additionally, it's completely free, you know? So, recognizing what I was getting out of things was something that helped me prioritize my life and my schedule really early on.
I love that, man. The ROI and the necessity is key. It's interesting, man. Like I look at my own business and like when we had that cacao crisis that we had to totally shift gears and start offering tallow bricks, like knowing where the necessity is becomes very apparent and you just have creativity abound because you basically burned the boats. Like failure is not an option. There is no plan B. Like let's figure this shit out now because I don't want to fail. And you're able to just, when you remove the safety nets, you see opportunity in places you never would have before. And I feel like a lot of people, they never burn those boats. They never remove that safety net and they just stay content. But that oftentimes leads to just this mediocrity that they then let fester within themselves. Um, Kind of like what we were talking about earlier with having this long game approach and playing the long game, not having this viral, short-sighted mentality. What is there like a specific amount of time that you allocate to see if that ROI comes into place before you decide whether or not to continue to pursue it or not? Or like, how do you know when you've given it the ample time necessary to know if it's worth the while?
I think when it exceeds what a logical timeline is. For example, you know how the CPG industry is. If you come to the CPG game and you're in a rush, it's like, boy, are you in for a rude awakening. Like
Mhm.
this is not a rushed industry. You reach out to someone about something, they'll get back to you when they feel like getting back to you. It might be quick, but don't be shocked if suddenly, a place doesn't answer you for a week or two, you know? So what I do with every equity partner, with every consulting team I come on to, with everyone, I start always with what is the logical and objective, the phenomenological, what is outside of everyone's bullcrap and what they think we can do, what's actually a realistic timeline here. Then I just continually like training, layer real life over this buoy of objectivity, I'll call it. It's like, all right, I wanted to build 5 pounds of muscle in 1 month. I failed. It's like, well, you were never going to build 5 pounds of muscle in 1 month. So you didn't fail anything. That was a bad line. So I use that objective logical timeline to allow me to discern between are we actually ahead or behind? And I adapted that because I had a lot of, I did a lot of emergency work, if you will, in pro sports. So and so's hurt. I messed up. I'm in a bind. I'm in a precarious scenario. And I did a lot of that one off stuff. What I realized was sometimes people would make so much progress that they thought it wasn't even a problem in the first place and didn't recognize all the progress they made. And then other times people were depressed by the lack of progress they thought they made. But like I said, with the 5 pounds of muscle, you were never going to do that anyway. So I found that this logical timeline allows us to, because one thing I talk to a lot of my employees about is it's so easy to get an email and get a text message from somebody and feel like they're yelling at you. Like you have to answer it right away. And that's where the necessity came from. Do you have to answer this right away? No, you don't. You don't need to check your email every hour on the hour. You can check your email. Like that was one thing in particular I developed like a bad habit with. Has anyone emailed me? Like I need to have good email response time. Of course you need to have good email response time, but no one's expecting you to email them back in 22 minutes flat. And furthermore, like I said with return on investment, do I make extra money because I emailed this person back in 12 minutes? No. Do they think I'm a better person for emailing them back in 12 minutes? Also, no. So why is it a worry? And I think it does a great job of, like I said earlier with athletes, ask how questions, not why questions. I still think so often, even when you know what's going on, we're usually our own worst enemies. Like that safety net you referred to is a made up safety net. Whoever told you that safety net was even going to save you in the first place? Like I said, we're a forward moving world. So like the next problem just has to get solved. Like it's not that there is a issue because a problem arises. That's the very nature of life in and of itself. So I think having an opportunity to almost like doubt your doubts in a sense and walk yourself down the path of is this appropriate or not? Gives you a sounding board. It's almost like you turn a monologue into a dialogue with yourself, right? The cacao crisis, right? If you woke up one morning and you're, I want 100 kilograms of cacao tomorrow. During the crisis, that was probably unrealistic, but that might have not been unrealistic through another time period. So that logical timeline allows you to be like, oh, that's just not what I want right now. I can't make this happen. I would love to do it faster, but that's just not how this works. Or the opposite, man, I've been burning man hours on this for no reason. Like we are so far behind that I need new staff. I need a new perspective, or maybe the business strategy power needs to change up a little bit. Maybe I don't have the counter positioning I thought I had, but maybe I have more cornered resourcing than I actually thought I had. And I think that's, as you know, a business owner is the best learners in the world, right? You're always seeing how things evolve and change, and you have to be open to learning those things rather than the opposite.
Yeah. And I think so much of that, I mean, none of that just comes automatic. Like people's, perspective of what a logical timeline is so skewed without any time in the saddle, whether it be compositional changes or business developments or relationships. Like none of that happens automatically. Like you have to put in some reps to be able to have the perspective to know what a logical timeline even is. And I think that's where the whole viral short-sightedness is totally blown out of the park. Like these people that are expecting these things in a unrealistic timeline have zero time in the saddle. Nobody that's ever gone to the gym for any effective amount of time would legitimately think that they can gain 5 pounds of muscle in a couple weeks, but they think that because they've never gone to the gym for any consecutive amount of time whatsoever.
And you hold yourself to it, you know? And I think that's super important for allowing you to grow because it takes studying. Like you actually have to learn stuff to know what a real timeline is. And I think way too many people skip that step. So the software as a service tech company is a sales company. So I educate my salesmen in such a manner that you don't do cold calls. You study and you prepare before you ever make a single pitch because you need to know who you're pitching to, what's relevant to them, and so on and so forth. And that getting to know the B2B consumer is a very integral part of how we even run our contracts at the company. But I think it's the same thing with your logical timeline. Yeah, I just think I can get this done in 4 weeks. Why do you think that? I just don't know. A month sounds like a lot of time. It's like there's a lot of studying that goes into just figuring out what type of market you're in, figuring out who your consumer is. Ferrero Rocher has that famous story. Ferrero Rocher really made the modern, marketing based theory of creating your avatar or like knowing who your consumer is. And that Ferrero Rocher created their ideal consumer, which was a woman at the time when they very first started. And they gave her a name and they dressed her up. What clothes does she wear? How many kids does she have? All this stuff. And that's where they put all their marketing perspective and effort into catering to this imaginary woman. And it worked fantastically. When was the last time you saw a Ferrero Rocher ad or commercial? But you know it exists for sure. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I think that's a well connected story in that one, things don't happen overnight. Two, you got to do a lot of studying and learning to even execute a marketing plan. And all this backlogged effort is what the business owner needs to be an expert in. And I think impulsivity kills the business owner. That's why I said having that dialogue with yourself before you even decide connotation is important. Before I'm allowed to have an opinion, I need to answer necessities and ROIs. And only then can I begin to have an opinion on the matter.
I'm super excited to do another conversation with you in a year, kind of like we've done this cadence here after you've had a kid, and we'll just see how all of this mentality and mindset that you're bringing to the table translates to everything you're doing as a parent. I think it will for sure. I'm excited about it, but it'll be interesting to get your perspective as a new parent. Because, like, I don't know, man, it's taught me a lot from a business standpoint, being a parent, and it'll just be curious to see, knowing your mind and how it works, how it's shaped by being a new father.
Thanks, man. I'm looking forward to it. And it's funny because right now, all this stuff is in a startup sense, right? If you look at
Mhm.
Bio Learners Institute, startup is like up to 5 years. So planning for these changes too, like getting off the ground is not being a leader for a company. So I've been doing a lot of reading and working on functional leadership because of a great piece of advice I got once from a very, very successful person was plan for success. Like if you do what you say you're going to do, then what happens? And I think that's a question a lot of people forget about or ignore. Like if you pull off what you say you're going to pull off, what's your play then? So if I pull all this stuff off the way I hope, intend, and work to, I actually have to be a dynamic and very specific leader to ensure these companies can actually do something. A good idea doesn't make you money, and having a lot of money does not mean your business is powerful. Like it's a weird game of Punnett squares, right? We know plenty of awesome products that aren't as famous as they should be. Plenty of famous products that we don't think deserve it. And then there's everything else in between. And I need to and want to be properly and appropriately prepared for that. And I think funny enough, being a father will probably help.
Yeah, it will for sure, man. It will. It just, again, it just kinda complements your ability to think on your feet, see the big picture, and create a cohesive day that compounds over time. So, I got no doubt, man. I'm excited for you.
Appreciate that.
What are you reading right now? What are you, from a philosophical standpoint, what are you benefiting from a reading standpoint?
You got me at a good time. I just finished Seven Powers of Business Strategy by Hamilton Helmer. If you're a business owner, it's an absolute must read. Like I've pushed allostasis, homeostasis, and the cost of physiological adaptation for like biology. It's like that level of a good book for business. I think Seven Powers is absolutely fantastic. I'm currently reading The Courage to Be Disliked. Um, Not the title doesn't necessarily correlate with what you read in the book, but I understand that leadership and also, the nature of the businesses I'm bringing to the table do step on some toes of some other businesses, that I think their toes need to be stepped on to a degree. So I need to also be prepared for that, for failure, for, employee termination, which is going to be inevitable, for quarrels or disagreements with boards, for difficult negotiation processes with a potential client or consumer, So it's a really, really fantastic book, and it's written mainly in dialogue form, which is really novel, but it's a great book.
I like it, man. I have not read that one, so I will check that out. I mean, terminating employees, having hard conversations, like nobody likes them, but when you can confidently do them to feel good about how they go, like that just comes with the territory of being a great leader. So I'm excited for you to do all that as well, man. It's fulfilling work. Oftentimes the hardest work is the most fulfilling work. Not that I am fulfilled by terminating people, but knowing that I have the skill set to do so the right way so that they leave me. I mean, one guy that I just terminated invited me to his wedding this week. Like that's a good sign.
Well, it's
you know.
true, a really great agent said to me once, you can attract flies with honey, and you can attract flies with vinegar. You got to figure out which one they want. Some
Hmm.
people and some employees need that loving, empathetic support to be developed and to grow and unlock their potential. Unfortunately, there are some friends, employees, and loved ones that maybe need to be chastised a little bit or slapped on the wrist, or they're vinegar people. They need a little bit of a firm hand to sometimes stay on track and develop. Because I think it's also selfish to not see the necessity for employee hiring and termination, and to also not think that it could benefit them in the long term. I think
Hmm.
it's very selfish to think that you're the only one that matters here and now, and woe is me. I have to bear the burden of letting this person go. How do you know this person didn't want to get let go? And this may actually be the inciting incident to the next big portion of their life. And you're unaware of the role you're playing. So I think it's important to always be willing to do things, like you said, with integrity, ethically, and honestly and upfront, to give that person that you may be terminating in this scenario the best possible chance to turn around and get a better job after this.
Totally. Totally agree, man. Well, how do people find out more about you? Dive into your world, and when these 6 different ventures go live, jump into all 6 of them.
That's the hard part. You can email me the Go Superbrain email. GoSuperbrain@gmail.com is still open. Pretty much never go on social media. My teams are going to take care of the spreading of the word. So when everything's out, you'll see what you need to see. Just don't expect it to come directly from me anymore. I do intend on getting completely off social media personally in 2026. That's one of my personal goals. So that's maybe not the answer everyone wants to hear, but it's the honest one.
No, I totally respect that. I mean, so totally out of curiosity, with this kind of coming to a head here, with you starting a family, um, what is the main motivation for getting completely off of social media? Like, I know you're not using social media to market; you're focusing on the word of mouth, positive word of mouth from being honest and upfront with your clientele that you've worked with previously. But like, what is the motivation for not even having a physical presence on social whatsoever?
So I actually read a fantastic paper a long time ago on the ideal perception to have as a leader. And they made the plight that if you have a trusted board of counselors and associates, that it's only a net negative for you to be involved in culture superfluously, because it will fog the bias and trust that may or may not be involved with your counselors. So I want to be the most trusting and objective leader. And I honestly just don't care for social media. It's never benefited me personally. Like I've never, I have great friends that I hope to catch up with on email and other stuff that I just truly don't want to participate. I don't like it, like, and all that stuff. So that's why I've like always just chosen to not really participate, even though I do have a couple pages. I have team members who are going to take over. The Ghost Superbrain page will be gone, but it's just like not for me. And I want to be as present as possible and as trusting and objective as possible when it comes to my corporate based leadership decisions, as well as with my family.
I love it, man. Totally respect that. Well, tell you what, Andy, when you're off social completely, don't forget about me. I won't forget about you. You got my email. You got my contact, man. I'm always keen to learn more about what you got cooking. If there's anything I could ever do to help you, let me know. And just keep me in the loop, man. If you ever want to jump on a podcast and do a follow up, you've always got an open invitation because you're a fascinating individual, man. You're gonna do great things. So I'm excited for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I hope that like people that listen to these more like lifestyle podcast episodes, because I've done a lot. Like my only goal is like just let people know there's more than one way out there. Like, I know my path is a little novel and that scared me for a while, but eventually I realized like that was the gift. So the next generation of kids, because we're slowly getting older, I hope people can like recognize that individuality isn't dead and you really can do whatever you want in the world.
100%, man. Amen to that, brother. Well, Andy, keep in touch, man. Keep killing him, and we'll talk soon, man.
Likewise.
Take care.